As a land trust and environmental institute, RARE's ultimate goal is to make the world a more sustainable place. We do this by making the environment more relevant in people's lives through conservation, research, and education in ways that are inclusive of different worldviews and all forms of inquiry. This braiding or bringing together of diverse knowledge systems and approaches enables us to see today's environmental and social challenges through a lens of justice and innovation. In this sense, we are an institute where the land becomes a living laboratory and outdoor classroom, and where researchers and knowledge keepers of all ages, disciplines, and worldviews connect with each other and the community. And most importantly of all, RARE is a place where children and youth are at the center of the hope our work creates. Hope for more and more people who won't be mere bystanders, but who are ready to shift their lives towards a carbon-neutral society and a future where we can live once more in reciprocity with the planet. Through hands-on experiences on the land, we want to make tangible why the environment matters and how everyone plays a part in protecting it. In creating our new strategy and plans for the next 5 years, we've taken to global report cards. And our role is to help improving Canada's grade by contributing to national and international goals. One of these important goals is the Pathway to Canada Target 1, a nationwide initiative which is to help Canada reach its international biodiversity commitments, hoping to conserve at least 70% of its land and freshwater by 2020, so this year, through a coordinated network of protected areas, Indigenous protected and conserved areas, and other conservation measures. Our plans also address Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, as outlined in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity, resolved to free the human race from the tyranny of poverty and to shift the world onto a sustainable and resilient path. Recognizing the integral role of Indigenous peoples as leaders in conservation, all of Canada's conservation goals are tightly linked to reconciliation with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Likewise, here at RARE, we build our conservation efforts, for example, on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, a universal framework of minimum standards for the survival, dignity, and well-being of the Indigenous peoples of the world. And also the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or TRC, with 94 calls to action and the calls for justice coming out of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. And lastly, we have also taken into account the We Rise Together report, published by the Indigenous Circle of Experts that was formed in 2018 as part of the Pathway to Canada Target 1 effort. It provides advice to federal, provincial, and territorial, and as well as Indigenous governments on how to achieve Canada Target 1 through the appropriate recognition of Indigenous leadership and knowledge systems in the conservation of land and water. This is actually a very good segue to speak more about why the need for a new approach to conservation is urgent. By December 31st, 2019, just last year, only 12.1% of Canada's land and freshwater was conserved, which made Canada dead last of all G7 countries and behind the 17% goal I cited earlier. In August 2019, a report by the IPCC warned that human activity, particularly the unsustainable overuse and abuse of natural resources such as lands and forests, has damaged once fertile grounds and thriving ecosystems beyond recognition. Already, humans have changed over 70% of the planet, which has affected every aspect of our life and led to tremendous loss. Ecological grief has become a recent phenomenon, describing the desperation and sense of loss many of us feel in the face of what seems to be unsurmountable challenges. But giving up is really not the answer, and RARE is ready to support everyone who joins in what we must do, which is to turn the ship around. Here in Waterloo Region, Wellington, our previous local consultations have shown that one of the most glaring issues remains our lack of formally protected lands and waters. Even 17% is not where we need to be and what many have stressed for years. The Earth needs half, and only once 50% of the entire globe is protected, have we really made progress towards a more sustainable way of life, past arbitrary goals and deadlines that are neither based on traditional knowledge nor sound science. Our organizational goals for the next 5 years will therefore be centered around growth and amplification of conservation land as well as related programs. We have identified 4 areas of focus. Stewardship in place will continue to demonstrate that conservation and restoration of land is REA's core priority. We will launch and begin to implement the REA Site's land securement strategy. Being on the land and with the land will form the basis for everything else we do. Secondly, braiding and belonging describes how we do things. We will continue to invite different forms of knowing and being from diverse communities. This includes enabling Indigenous leadership and resurgence while challenging settler assumptions and privileges. It also means making space for the worldviews of youth, immigrants, the Black community, the LGBTQ+ community, to name only a few communities who have not previously felt they had access to conservation institutions. Learning and exploring will continue to offer hands-on and immersive experiences. Because everything is connected, we will listen to the land, its people, youth, and elders. Research and education will move closer together, and we will share what we know, how we feel, and what we hope for, thereby amplifying our programs and partnerships. We will continue to ask questions, make great art and science and community. How do we want to live is the question that is at the core of these explorations. And lastly, abundance. This includes celebrating our supporters, advisors, volunteers, and staff. We will foster further transparency and accountability, create systems and processes that generate a culture of support and shared responsibility for our common goals. This, we believe, is of critical importance for healthy and sustainable organization, particularly in a world where we are dealing with a fairly large degree of uncertainty in the wake of the coronavirus crisis.